Today is August 8th. For us, it is a Thursday, but 80 years ago today, this was a Tuesday. Tuesday, August 8th, 1944. The crew known as the crew of the Five Grand, did the mission in support of Canadian forces on the ground near Caen, or Caen, France, as it's more pronounced. Caen, France, which is actually at a town called St Sylvain, it's 15 miles south and east of Caen. So this is their second operation, their second mission of my grandfather. And, here is him right there. So that's my grandfather, not a very big guy. More jokes on that later. We're coming back to talk about what was annotated from one of their crew members. Again, this was all written out by John McBride, the left waist gunner, or left wing gunner. So this is all from his perspective, his writing. But I wanted to share with you, I actually found this mission on the 100th Bomb Group Foundation page, and they have all sorts of details on it. I'm not going to read through this with you. I'm only going to read through the other part, but I want to highlight one portion. For this particular mission, with each fortress loaded with 12 500-pound bombs carried on the internal racks and 2,000-pound bombs carried on external racks mounted on the wings, all of them took off with 8,000 pounds of explosives. And it was the first time that they had tried doing that as a loadout. Their mission this particular day was to support Canadian forces as they were, with the rest of the Allied forces, pushing the German forces, trying to encircle them and ultimately push them out of Normandy. So, as a reminder, 2 months earlier, you had the Normandy invasion taking place right in here. And when we were talking yesterday, the St. Quentin mission, where they're going to take out that bridge, that's over here. Today, we're going right here is Caen, or Caen, France. Roughly right over here, right where you see the tip of that. Right in that little area is where St Sylvain, France is. So let's read what happened that day. The next day we flew over France again, this time to drop our bombs about 300 yards from Canadian forces in an effort to wipe out the German resistance hindering their advance. In dropping our bombs, the lead bombardier was misled by the smoke pots used as frontline markers, so we unfortunately released the bombs slightly before proper time. The result was that several men in the Canadian Army received bomb fragments in their arms and chest. One B-17 lost its left wing, and when we were fired upon over our target, but this was the only mishap that occurred during the mission. 2 parachutes were seen to open, and more, no doubt, opened later on. We were lucky to get a wonderful view of Cherbourg on our way in over the channel, and to observe the way it had been fixed up by the invading Allied forces. Now, it was from his perspective of what he had seen. If you read the actual story, it does paint a slightly different picture. Unfortunately, only one of those crew members survived. And they make annotation note of their names and what had happened. There's 2 planes ultimately that got shot down that day. But that was from their perspective on the ground at the time. He wrote this up from his notes, took his notes. He may not have known about those events when he wrote this, but taking note, the bombs dropping 300 yards from the lines, and they mentioned the smoke pots. So this website also has a really great photograph of the area. So here's St. Sylvain, and you can still see smoke most likely this was, if this was taken on that day, most likely those photos, yeah, it says St Sylvain strike photo, most likely those were smoke markers annotating where friendly forces were and notifying to the bombardier group, hey, this is where we are, there's the enemy, engage them this direction. You can see these tiny little pock marks. That is where many of the bombs dropped and hit. So you can see if this was, in fact, the Canadian line, and I'm not sure if we're looking north or south here. They don't have a north-facing arrow. If this was the Canadian line, and you have the majority of bombs close to, then you can imagine some friendly fire ended up happening. How many troops on the ground died or from those injuries, I do not know. I'm sure that may be annotated somewhere else. But this was what they did on that day. I can tell you from the perspective of the people on the ground how frustrating that would have been when the bombs were dropping all around you. Already at 300 yards, as you put it, that would be called a danger close mission when it comes to any sort of ordnance, whether it's mortars or close air support. The dropping of explosives that close, frightening. So yeah, now we can see the last 2 days where Allied forces were focusing their air efforts. First coming into St. Quentin, dropping bombs to try to target a bridge, which ended up not working out. Then coming over here in support of forced troops as they're circling their way around and trying to sweep through Normandy. The next post I will be making will not be until the 14th. And on that day, we're going to talk about what they did. Here you go. August 14th, 1944, what they did in Mannheim, Germany.